good morning, wherever you're located across the country. My name is Chris Purcell. I'll be showing you our Focus Payroll PPACA reporting module. This webinar is being recorded, and it will be published on our YouTube site. The address for that is youtube.com/FMS Solutions. There you can access videos from other trainings, from accounts payable, general ledger, and payroll information. It will be published probably early next week. We'll have it up there, so if you need to refer back to it, it will be there. Also, the training manual for the PPACA is available on the Applications tab in the FMS portal. If you have access to the FMS portal, you want to go to the Applications tab, and right down the bottom left under the Library of Manuals, you'll see Focus PPACA Reporting Module OIS. The OIS module is what this audience is using. This audience is the accounting services clients that utilize FMS for BPO services, and you have special menus we call Online In-Store, OIS menus. This is the manual for you. And this is the webinar for you. So let's go ahead and get started. The first thing I want to do is review the 1094 and the 1095 forms. Hopefully by now you've seen these forms and acclimated yourself with them. If not, I'd highly recommend you do that, because this is really the bread and butter of the end-of-year reporting that clients have to do, employers have to do. There's two forms. The 1094 is the transmittal form, and therefore that's one form per employer, per EIN. And then the 1095 is your employee form that has to be sent out to all full-time employees or employees that were full-time at any time during the year. So I just like to review the forms really quickly. These are downloaded from the IRS website. You can also download the instructions for these forms. I highly recommend that you read through it in detail. It's a lot of information that you need to digest and make sure that you understand so you can report everything correctly. So of course the 1094, the top of it is just name and address, pretty straightforward stuff there. Down towards the bottom is some yes or no questions for the most part. Is this the authoritative transmittal? There's a total number of 1095 forms, an amount here. Are you a member of an aggregated ALE group? And then certifications for eligibility here for transition relief, different kinds of, and your methods. The second page, or the part 3, is just some yes or no questions for minimum essential coverage offered by month, more counts of full-time employees and total employees by month. Column D is an aggregated group indicator, and E is the transition relief indicator. FMS will produce a report for you that has all this information, but obviously we need you to give us the information to tell us, okay, did you have a minimum essential coverage for each of these months? And then, did you have an aggregated group indicator, yes or no, for each of the months? And if you had transition relief, was it the 50 to 99 or the 100 or more transition relief? Obviously, we need that information from you, and so what you'll essentially do is provide that information. This, along with all the ALE information under Part 2, there's also a fourth part here, the other members of the ALE group. So essentially, you would give us all that information, and we can produce a report that's very similar to this form, where we're calculating the total number of 1095 forms that are being printed for you, and then the full-time employee counts and the total employee counts. Those are things obviously the payroll system has, and we can calculate those for you. So we could produce a form that's very similar to this 1094, and then those values get transferred over to this 1094 onto a paper form that gets submitted to the IRS. And we'll talk about electronic filing towards the end. So essentially, we have obviously the top Part 1 information. You can provide the Part 2 and 3 and 4 information, and we can produce this form for you. It's pretty straightforward. It's not a screen that this audience has access to. It's more the FMS accountant will set this up for you. You just provide the information, and I don't have like a form that you would fill out. It's pretty much this, this form precisely, but what I think we'll do is we'll come up with a document that pretty much lays out from A to Z what you need to give us for this document, the 1094. So obviously we don't need your name and EIN and your address information, but we do need to know is this the authoritative transmittal and the ALE member information. So we'll kind of specify exactly what we're looking for in order to produce this form and the electronic files. And then we can obviously tell you what we're going to know, which is the total number, these counts, the 1095 count and full-time counts, employee counts, that sort of thing you don't need to provide. So look for that going forward. What I really want to talk about most of this webinar is the 1095. This is obviously the bread and butter of what takes the most amount of time to calculate these things. I should say track your employees, the tracking that you're doing now, in order to get this form to each employee that you have to get it to. Let me just review the form really quickly. So we've got Part 1, employee name and address there at the top, and then the employer address, top right-hand corner. Part 2 is the most is really where all the data revolves around, and this is the offer and coverage code by month for the employee, and the employee share lowest cost monthly premium for self-only minimum value coverage. So we like to call that the bronze plan. This box 15 is only required for certain codes. I should say box 14 codes. That's on the instructions on page 2. Line 15, it says it's only required for box 15, line 15 codes 1B, 1C, 1D, and 1E. Otherwise, you don't have to fill out box 15. Box 16 is your safe harbor code. So if you're using any type of safe harbor and the employees are eligible, this is where you would indicate that. So for box 14 and 16, there's a list of codes. The instructions have box 14 laid out here as far as what codes and what they mean. Line 16 doesn't, but in the instruction document for employers, it does specify all the codes for line 16 and what they mean. And then if you're self-insured, which is key here, you have to provide the covered individuals by employee. So obviously spouse or dependents, they get listed here. So if you're not self-insured, your health insurance company will provide this information to the IRS. But for those clients that are self-insured, you need to provide it to the IRS. So it's pretty straightforward information: the dependent's name, social security number, date of birth, and then what months in which they were covered. So basically what FMS is, our reporting module does is we accepted all this information, to box 14, 15, 16, and then the covered individuals, and then we can turn around and produce these reports just like a W-2. So FMS can, print these forms for you just like we do the W-2s. So let's get into focus, and let's go to into the module, and I'll show you how it works. So you may have noticed on the payroll menu, we've added a new button for the health insurance reporting. So there's two parts really. It's the database itself, accessing the employee information, and then a report to indicate what is in the database, what information have you entered via either keying it in or doing a spreadsheet import, which I'll talk about in a moment. So let's get into just working with the database tables and the offer and coverage records, covered individual records. Everything is organized by year, so obviously these forms are filed by year, so our data is stored by year. All the reporting is by year. So everything kind of revolves around, you're going to be prompted for the year. When you come in, it's going to default to the current year, and then you can just pop in and start working with your employees. So first, right off the bat, we get a list of employees here that we can work with. You can search for employees using any of these boxes up at the top, the employee number, social security number. You can see the list is sorted by employee number. I can click a different toggle to sort by employee name, last name and first name. And then I can search, obviously, by last name and first name, and then store and department. So if I want to see only employees in one particular store, I can just filter them, and same with department. Then the last three columns on the right-hand side are areas for you to filter. Also, the first filter, E, is employee offer and coverage records. So this is going to tell you, have a Y for any employees that have at least one offer and coverage record. And then obviously a no for employees that don't have any offer and coverage records. So if you want to see a quick list of all the employees that don't have a record, you can filter the list just using that N. The I is for covered individuals. So for those, again, self-insured clients, you can quickly see who has records for, you want to do a yes, excuse me, who has covered individual records and who doesn't, just to filter very quickly. And then, of course, the IA at the end is active and inactive employees. So working with an employee, you want to just simply highlight the employee, and then we're going to go into work with employee offer and coverage records. So you go into the employee offer and coverage records, and the first thing that you see is the records that we have stored for this employee. Okay, so let me go ahead and edit a record, and I can talk about what it looks like. So of course from here we can add new records, we can delete records, and we can edit records. So I'm going to highlight this record to edit. And it's pretty straightforward as far as the fields. There's just the fields that we're looking at here, which pertain exactly to the 1095 report. So obviously we have begin month and end month. So what we're doing here with the begin and end month is giving you the ability to enter a range of months where all these values are exactly the same. So obviously for a full-time, let's say salaried employee that is getting a qualifying offer, you can just simply enter one record, begin month, end month, the box 14 offer, which is qualifying offer, and you can prompt for a list of codes. And we've got the codes that are accepted by the IRS and an abbreviation, because we have a small description field here of what they mean. For example, this is employees minimum essential coverage, that's MEC, minimum value, and dependent minimum essential coverage. So again, all of these are kind of laid out in the IRS instructions that you'll definitely want to review and understand so you can determine for each employee what these codes need to be. And then the line 15, box 15, employee share of the lowest cost monthly premium for self-only coverage. So if you need it, it's not required for offer code 1A. You can enter it here, like for example $50 that the employee is paying. And then the safe harbor is again on the 1095 line C. That's your 4980 section 4980 safe harbor code. So you would enter that. Again, you can prompt for a list of the codes. So it's we've got them here. And then there's an indicator for full-time employee. And the reason we're doing this here is to very quickly and easily indicate if an employee was, let's say, promoted to a full-time status. We're tracking it separately because the 1094, if you remember on the second page, has full-time employee count by month. So in order to do that, we're looking for this field in the offer and coverage records. You'll just indicate, yes, this was a full-time employee for this range of time. So I can go back, and like I said before, you can, once you highlight a record, you can edit, add, or delete the record, new record. So if I don't need to add because I have 1 through 12 here, but if I were to come in and edit and I made a mistake, and let's say I want to make this to June, hit OK. Let's say maybe the employee was terminated. I can come in and add a new record from, July, to December. The offer code down here, no offer of coverage. And there's a safe harbor code for not employed. So I'll just enter that information, hit OK, and save it. And now I've got 2 records for different month ranges, I should say, here. So you can have obviously up to 12 records here, 1 for each month if the employee just so happened to have a different, let's say, box 14, 15, or 16, or full-time for any of all of those months. You can enter 1 record for each month if you want, or you can do ranges of months. So once the employee information, let me go over the covered individuals real quick. Very similar functionality. So you will simply highlight the employee and go into covered individuals. And then, of course, what we're doing here is just simply listing the covered individuals that exist for this employee. And you can, of course, edit, delete, and add covered individuals. So if I come in and just edit, we have Social Security number, the same information that's required on the 1095. Last name, first name, birth date, Social Security number, and then just a simple yes or no if they were covered during each month. And that all corresponds to the 1095. Again, show you it real quick. These lines here, covered individuals, name, social, date of birth, and then the months in which they were covered. So of course I can come in here, edit, add any new dependents, delete them if I need to, if I made a mistake. So that's the 2 functions regarding the 1095. This is essentially all the data that we need in order to generate the 1095s. Now, let's go over the report really quick, and I'll talk about the spreadsheet import. So the employee offer and coverage report is kind of a reconciliation report for you. I say that word, reconciliation, because we do print messages if we believe that the employee needs to have offer and coverage records, but they don't. So when you run it, it will prompt you for a year. Again, everything's stored by year. You can choose whether or not to print the covered individuals, the dependents. And then the add month, as of month, is a way for you to, let's say you want to run this report in the middle of a year where you're loading data each month, let's say. And it's June, and you just want to run it as of June, okay? We're not going to print error messages when we find that you're missing offer and coverage records for employees in July and beyond. So you can run this report and just say, okay, just show me everything as of June. And then as of June, am I missing any offer and coverage records for employees? So if you leave it blank, it's just going to assume the whole year. And I have an example of what the report looks like. So this is very simply running over this new database, the offer and coverage information. So essentially it lists each employee, name, employee number, store, and so on. And then this is sorted by last name. And then we're doing, basically we're just printing the offer and coverage records that we have for each month. So box 14, 15, and 16. So you can see right away this employee here, if I look across to the message column, says offer coverage months missing. So I can just look, for example, box 14 and look across, and I can see here that it's missing, it's blank for December. Okay, so for example, I could pop in to that employee, find the employee, work with offer and coverage. Oh, I think I deleted it, I'm sorry, my last webinar. But anyways, it would have been in here, and I can just go and edit. And then down here is the dependent information. So this employee has dependents. So the first line is just a header, and then it will list all the dependents under them. So the last name, first name, date of birth, and the yes or no indicators for each month. And then you can see down below, because I don't have a lot of data in here, it's showing me other employees where I'm missing offer and coverage records. So again, it's determined that these employees do need offer and coverage records, and it's just printing you a warning message that, hey, you don't have them in there. So this is a way for you to just basically see what all the data is that you have in there and put it out on a report. Okay, so let's talk about, obviously this is a lot of data that we're dealing with. So let's talk about methods to ease entry, getting it into the system. So we have a spreadsheet import for both offer and coverage and the covered individuals. So I'm going to start with the offer and coverage. So here's a template, and we can send out these templates to everyone, all the attendees here. So exactly the same fields that you saw on the screen. So we've got client number, the year, employee ID number, begin month, end month, and then box 14, 15, 16, and then the full-time indicator. So what I'm doing here with my spreadsheet is I've got a separate sheet for each month. Because a lot of all the tracking is done by month, well, I should say all the reporting is done by month, one way to sort of handle all of this is create a spreadsheet for each month where you list all of your active employees, and obviously the begin and end month would be the same for January here, begin January, end January, and we just calculate the box 14, 15, 16 codes and the full-time indicator, and we get that information into the spreadsheet by month, and then the FMS accountant can upload this into the database. So basically all you have to do is get the information into this spreadsheet. I say that like it's an easy task, and we know it's not, but you get the information into this spreadsheet, and then you can just email this spreadsheet over to your FMS accountant, and we can get it uploaded into the system. And then, of course, you can run the report once it's been imported to see all the data. The covered individual spreadsheet is exact same thing. Client number, year, employee number, the social security number of so the CI is covered individual social security number, covered individual last name, first name, middle initial, date of birth, and then just a simple yes or no for each month. And I forgot to specify, but on both spreadsheets, the employee ID number can be either the employee payroll employee number or the social security number. We can take either or. This was modeled, these two imports were modeled over the same functionality as the employer cost of healthcare spreadsheet import that we did a few years back that you may be sending to your accountant at the end of the year to be imported and ultimately reported on the W-2s. So essentially we're mimicking all of that functionality here. So you can use either the employee ID or the social. You just have to be consistent. It has to be either one way or the other. And then we just list out the employees. And of course, I don't have, back on the offer and coverage here, I don't have to do it this way by month. If I know that employees are going to be, you know, full-time for the end, or if I full-time the whole year, or if I want to do this once at the end of the year, I could just do a range of months here and do January to December. Okay, this employee number 1, is getting the qualifying offer 1A for the entire year. So I can just put that in and put the entire range. So either way, you can have 1 record for offer and coverage for the whole year. You can have 12, 1 for each month. The system can take either or. So that, in a nutshell, is our reporting module and the data that is required. For future programming, what we're still waiting on the IRS to give us a little bit more information about how we can generate these 1095s in a manner that we don't have to be stuffing thousands of pieces of paper into an envelope. And that, of course, is self-sealer forms. Just like W-2s that most of you receive from FMS, we would prefer more of a self-sealer version of this form, and we're waiting on further clarification from the IRS that we can do that. We can basically essentially put this in a more I should say portrait and legal size, and then put the envelope portion towards the bottom, and then of course it gets run through our sealer machines and much easier to deal with. So once we have that information, we'll be developing the printed forms. We're also waiting on more clarification from the IRS for the electronic reporting. Once they finalize the file layout specifications, we will quickly develop a program to generate the electronic files so that you don't have to be sending paper to the IRS. Because, of course, this 1095 has to be sent to the IRS, it has to be sent to the employee. So the IRS version, and it's going to be mandated for employers with 250 or more employees, you must file electronically, but they haven't actually finalized the specifications for that file. So once we have that information, it will be, of course, your FMS accountant that will generate the file for you, and we'll be able to do that as well. So that concludes the webinar. I hope everyone found this information helpful. Like I said, we will send out templates for both of the spreadsheets so you can get an idea of what those look like in your hands. If you have any questions, you can contact either your FMS accountant or FMS support. Our help desk is support@fmssolutions.com. And then, obviously, like I said, we'll have this webinar up on our YouTube page, and we have the manual up on the portal as well. Thanks, everyone, for listening in. And like I said, as soon as we have more information on the forms and the electronic reports, we'll make sure to get that out to you. Maybe we'll do another webinar later in the year to make sure that everyone understands it. But please let us know if you have any questions. Thank you very much.